Hello, this is Professor Kent Lee. Welcome to my lower intermediate English conversation course. I'm a new professor here at Pukyung English Department, and I'm glad to meet you all, and welcome to my class. I am a new professor at Pukyung National University, English Department. I'm just moving here and just starting, and I look forward to meeting you all in class. We are first going to talk about a little bit of business and course overview and what's going to happen now. And I'll talk more in detail later about the details of the course. What your previous instructor has done, I'm going to incorporate into my course, including any assignments that you did. Course contents is naturally going to change. I'll have a new syllabus or course plan up, hopefully very soon, if not today, hopefully very soon, along with more details about the grading and assignments. Basically, we'll have minor assignments along the way, short homework assignments, and especially during this time of online courses, there will be short Google Forms to do, online forms, based on the lecture content, so you will need to fill those out based on our discussion questions. That's kind of how I'm going to take attendance for a while. And we will have major assignments, kind of speaking, presentation, discussion assignments, especially for midterm and final. And these will be related to some of the things we do in class, some of the projects throughout the semester. There will be some kind of projects that relate to or build up to the midterm and final, and probably the midterm and final are going to be kind of related, part of an ongoing project. There'll probably also be a short write-up, a little short write-up or final paper at the end, and these will be major assignments. The midterm kind of presentation or discussion project, and then the final discussion or presentation project, and then a little write-up about your final project. We'll talk more about that later. Minor assignments, including these Google Form assignments, each one will probably be worth maybe 10 points. A few, if they're bigger, maybe 20 points. And at the end of the semester, I'll kind of add them all up, and let's say you have 90 out of a possible 100 points on 10 minor assignments, and that will be like a homework grade or homework average, along with other midterm and final grades, and a little attendance and participation grade also on top of that. More will be in the syllabus later, and I'll explain more maybe next week. In terms of materials, I will probably be using a course packet. It will maybe look something like this. I usually would make it available in a campus copy shop, a photocopy or print shop off campus, near campus. Things are kind of weird with no physical classes. I'll make that available to you maybe when the time is right to buy, whenever we come back to live classes. Or I might make it available online. Or for now, for these next couple of weeks, I'll just chop it up into little PDF handouts and put it on the LMS or my website for you to download so you can follow along. So there will be handouts to follow along with these video lectures. For these video lectures, I'll talk some and then have you do something based on a handout. I will ask you to engage in some discussion, thinking and discussion. So I'll ask you to pause the video from time to time and think about something or do something, and then talk to someone else. So this is kind of weird because I'm talking to you through YouTube, but you probably know classmates in the department. Maybe have a friend from your department that you're taking the class with, somebody you know from a previous class. If not, some other friends or classmates from Pukyung. If not, your apartment, flatmate, roommate, somebody at home, your dog, yourself. Talk to somebody for these discussion questions because that's a necessary part of the class. It will really help you to find someone to talk to since this is a conversation class. Our first topic will be about discovering more about your personality, hopefully, maybe. You discover something a little new about yourself. First, a little bit about a couple of the initial assignments. I use Google Forms. The first one is an online form you should do this week or early next week. This is kind of a personal information form and survey form. I want you to fill it out, and this asks for contact information, including 2 email addresses. I want email addresses because, for example, in case I need to contact you, or especially for major assignments like midterm and final assignments, I want to send feedback to you by email. And sometimes Gmail, I use Gmail, but sometimes mails get lost between Gmail and Korean email servers. So I like to have 2 addresses from you so I can make sure I reach you. And then I will ask you in this form some survey questions about how you feel about English or about your studies. This is something that I might use someday for my own research. You get full 10 points just for doing this form. There are no right or wrong answers. I just want to know honestly, how do you really feel about these questions, about English and about learning. I want your honest opinion, so fill it out honestly, no right or wrong, just be honest, and you get 10 points if you do it on time. Second form is going to be about today's lesson. After today's lesson, I'll ask you to fill out a short Google form about your responses to this lesson and the personality survey that we are going to do today. This class will follow a sort of a theme for the semester, and I'll share more with you next time in detail about the theme of the semester, but today we're going to start talking about personality, and we're going to do it from more of a psychological approach. My training was mainly in linguistics, but I also took courses in psychology of language and also other areas of psychology. And one thing I find interesting is what's called the MBTI, which stands for the Myers-Briggs Personality Type Inventory. So Myers-Briggs stands for the people who designed this test. Personality type, it types your personality. And inventory is a term in psychology meaning kind of a test that assesses you or evaluates you according to, say, personality criteria and can help classify you into maybe particular personality types or types of belief or types of something in personality. So it's sort of like a test you fill out, a psychological test you fill out to help maybe a psychologist learn more about you in a way that's maybe more accurate than just asking you directly, because sometimes you ask a person directly, okay, how do you feel about that? And it's hard for people to answer right away or very accurately. A psychology inventory is maybe a way of kind of digging deeper into maybe people's attitudes or beliefs or preferences. So this is a famous inventory. Maybe you've taken it before. Did you take an MBTI before somewhere? Maybe a formal MBTI or an informal one? Pause for a minute and talk to somebody. Did you take an MBTI before? Were the results helpful, or did you think the results were accurate? If not, at least talk to somebody and say, what kind of personality are you? How would you describe yourself? And ask the other person, how would you describe me? Do you think the way I describe myself is accurate? Do you agree with it? Talk to someone about. Okay, I'm providing you a handout about MBTI. And before I explain the different categories on this test, I just want you to fill this out. This is an informal version of the MBTI. I have a friend who works in business consulting, Sangdam consulting, and he advises business clients how to, especially managers and executives, how to improve their workplace dynamics, how people work and get along, and dealing with maybe personality problems at work, or helping people to better understand themselves so they can be better managers or better workers. So I'm using this test that he loaned to me. He's letting me use. So this is not the official MBTI. This is kind of an informal MBTI. So here for one pair of categories, and I'll explain later what these mean. You just kind of check, this one or this one. Does this describe me, or does that describe me? So put a 1 in each blank for each item that describes you better. This side or that, or this side. Occasionally, maybe you might say, oh, both describe me just as well, or I can't decide, or depends. Maybe you can just leave that blank, skip it. And then add the total at the bottom, like for E and for I. And then for this category, this set, and then this set, and this set. So there are 4 sets. So add up the results, and then for each category, you kind of use your best judgment. Maybe I get more here than here. So if I get more here, well, this is J, so I would be a J. Or if I get more here, then this type is a P, judging, perceiving, and later I'll explain what these mean. And you can kind of go, okay, I'm INTP, and that's my personality type. A lot of people like to do this in SNS. I'm in Facebook. Oh, I'm INTP. This is what it means. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about whether that's a good thing, what you see on SNS and what people share on Facebook or SNS or the internet about their MBTI personality types. Actually, what's more important is if we just look at each category. Are you E or I? Are you S or N? We'll talk about that. So I want you to take a few minutes, pause the video, take a few minutes, fill this out. It's in your handout that's provided. Probably want to print it out. Print it out, fill it out, add up the numbers, and decide. Now, it is possible you might come out kind of equal, 8 and 8. And that's interesting. We'll talk about that later. And maybe you kind of have to guess. So here I'm 8 and 8. As I explain what these mean, maybe you can then kind of decide, oh, maybe I'm a bit more like this. We'll talk about that later. Anyway, pause the video, fill this out, and kind of calculate your personality type or your results for each category. And then we'll talk about it. Okay, first let's talk about these different categories and what they might mean. And we're also interested in what they might mean for you as a student. The first one is extroversion, introversion. First of all, introversion is a word that's misunderstood oftentimes. Introversion, being an introvert, does not necessarily mean that you are shy, or you're socially awkward, or you don't like people. That's not what it means. There might be a few introverts who are like that, but that's not what introversion really means in psychology. What this means is, where does your mental energy come from? If you're an introvert, maybe you're not as outgoing, it doesn't mean that you are antisocial or you don't like people. What it means is you probably enjoy social interacting with people, but then you need time alone. You need time alone to charge your mental batteries. Your brain has to recharge alone. Doing something by yourself. Maybe it's just thinking. Maybe it's reading, taking a walk in the forest, walking along the shore. Doing something by yourself. Painting, drawing, listening to music, just spending time by yourself. You have to do that to recharge, otherwise you kind of go crazy. That's how you get your mental energy. You get your mental energy by yourself, from being alone. Your brain recharges from being alone. The extrovert gets his or her mental energy from social interaction. So they find social interaction stimulating. It gives them energy. They get their energy from that. They recharge their batteries and get their mental energy from interacting with other people, from social situations. The introvert generally likes social interaction, but it's tiring for them. They like to be alone. The extrovert maybe doesn't like being alone as much because they need social interaction for their energy. The introvert finds it tiring and has to charge their batteries by being alone. It does not mean being shy. It does not mean being an introvert does not mean, for example, you don't like crowds or public speaking. Well, you probably don't like crowds as much. You probably don't like big parties. You like a smaller group of friends who are closer. You probably don't like small talk, talking about minor things like the weather or something. You like talking about more interesting, intelligent things, or not talking at all and being quiet some. But you like talking to people, but not just blah, 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 blah. Okay, not like the extrovert. It doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to be a leader or a public speaker. Actually, you think of the typical business leader as an extrovert, someone who's outgoing, and those people do well in business, but introverts can do well in business too, but they need time to recharge. They can do well in leadership positions as long as they take care of themselves and their energy. They can do public speaking. I am an introvert, but I love public speaking and I love teaching. Yes, I have to go home and recharge, or go to my office and recharge, listening to music or just resting or thinking or reading. But I love public speaking. I love teaching. I've done public speaking to crowds of 1,000, 2,000 people, and it's fun. Don't mind. But afterwards, I need to rest. Sensing and intuitive. Sensing people like to notice details and facts. They deal with facts and details. The hands-on stuff, they're kind of maybe more practical people. They have good common sense. They learn from experience, from doing things. Maybe they like to work with their hands, or maybe they don't like theories, working in theory so much. They like the real world, whether it's practice or doing experiments, learning from research or experiments, or from actually doing things. They're not so theoretical. They kind of like the real world, the reality. And intuitive people are more interested in understanding connections and relationships between things, concepts. They're the more conceptual thinkers. So the sensing person is more of a practical or empirical thinker. Empirical, like they like doing things or learning from experience or from testing things. Intuitives, they like ideas, theories, concepts. They're more of a abstract thinking. Being imaginative, theoretical, being creative thinkers too. So you got the practical versus the more conceptual or creative kind of thinking. Thinking and feeling types. Thinkers make decisions based on objective criteria, facts. They're analytical. They want to know the facts and make decisions based on facts. Based on the facts and the reality. What makes sense and what's logical. The feelers maybe are more in tune with emotions, their emotions, and also emotions of other people. And they like to make decisions based on values and how they feel about people and themselves. Possibly in a relationship or in friendships, these differences could cause problems. For example, feelers are really into like giving praise and compliments. Hey, great job. They like to give that to other people, and they also expect that. They depend more on that, getting praise and affirmation. Thinkers, on the other hand, while they do need some of that, they don't need it as much as a feeler. So they're more logical and analytical. So they don't give praise as much. If they do, it really means something. If a thinker says, you did really well, then that means a lot. They don't expect as much praise and compliments from other people. And only if it's something really important. Like I did something really important. So in a relationship, you can see how this could cause problems. The feeler is always giving compliments, and the thinker says, it's not sincere. Stop saying that all the time. I don't like that. And the feeler says, what? I'm trying to be nice to you. You never say anything nice to me. I mean, feelers give encouragement, and they need to receive encouragement. And the feeler says, you never give me encouragement. What's wrong with you? Do you not like me? You can see misunderstandings could arise in a friendship or a relationship because of these personality differences. Judging and perceiving. Judgers like to have a fairly structured, regular environment. They like to make decisions. They like to make decisions and then settle things and then move on. They want to decide and move on. They're good decision makers. They like to be organized and productive. And that can be cool, especially in business where you need to make decisions quickly and move on. Perceivers focus more on trying to experience as much as possible and learn as much as possible, especially before they make a decision. They like to keep their options open. They're comfortable with things not being decided or things not being clear if things are ambiguous. Judgers don't like that. Perceivers are okay with that. They're flexible. They're curious. They will maybe postpone or put off making a decision until they have enough information. And these can be good or bad. These traits are not necessarily good or bad. There are advantages to being a judger or a perceiver. A perceiver can be a more cautious decision maker, and that can be appropriate in a case where you really need to make a careful decision. You need to have enough facts and understand things before you decide. But they can take too long to decide if they're too focused on perceiving everything. Judgers can make quick decisions, but maybe they make them too quick and make bad decisions. It really depends. It could go either way. And there's no wrong or right here. There are advantages to being a thinker or a feeler, to being a sensing type or an intuitive type, an introvert and an extrovert. There's no right or wrong. There are advantages and disadvantages depending on the situation, and they're all cool. It can be helpful to understand these types, these personality types. I want you to pause the video now, and I want you to discuss some questions. How well do you think your results describe you? The results of this MBTI. How well does it describe you? Does it describe your personality accurately? If it doesn't, why not? What's wrong? Have you taken this test before? Did you get the same results? You might have gotten different results. Did you get different results? Do you agree with today's results or your results before? And why do you think you might get different results? Could that be a problem with this test? So do you think this test is accurate? Is it accurate? Is it a good test? Pause the video and talk for a while. Okay, before I really talk about some of these questions, I have some more questions, some more specific questions I want you to talk about here. Why do people get different results sometimes when they take it, especially if you have gotten different results? Is the MBTI useful? Do you think it's useful? Do you think psychologists would actually use this test? Does it have limitations? What are its strengths and weaknesses? What's it good for? What is it not good for? Imagine you're being hired at a major company, like in Korea, and I've heard some Korean companies do this, maybe in other countries too. You're hired for a job, but they haven't assigned you to a position. You take a test, it's maybe an MBTI test. Based on the results of the MBTI, you are assigned to a particular job. This job is suitable for your personality type because you're INTP or ESFJ. Is that right? Is that a proper use of this test? Or imagine you are joining a dating website and they make you fill out some survey questions. And these are essentially MBTI questions. They may not use these category names, may have some other names, but they'll classify you into a personality type based on MBTI type questions, and then match you with somebody, a boyfriend or girlfriend, a date, based on that. Is that accurate? Is that an appropriate use for this test? Would that help to match you with someone else? I'm going to ask you to think about that for a while, and we'll come back. I'm going to ask you to think about these questions, discuss these questions with somebody. And I'm also going to ask you to fill out a Google form number 2, where I want your thoughts on these questions that we've discussed. All right, let's talk about this for a little bit. The main limitation of MBTI is that it is only a test of your personality preferences. It is not about your ability or competence. It does not try to measure your abilities. It only measures your competence. It only measures your preferences. For example, let's take the introversion-extraversion scale. I'm an introvert, somewhat of an introvert, but I am a balanced person. I enjoy teaching and social interaction, but then afterwards I take care of myself. I do something to recharge my mind, and I am a healthy introvert, and many people are. An unhealthy introvert would be a person who is too shy or socially awkward, who doesn't like social interaction or doesn't know how to handle any social interaction, or doesn't take care of himself or herself and is always tired because they're pushing themselves in the wrong way. There are extroverts who are, of course, good at it. You like to be with them. There are some extroverts who are jerks. A jerk is a slang term for a person who's stupid and annoying. So some extroverts, or a few, I've worked with a few, who were outgoing, but they had no social skills. And we didn't like being around them. We were glad when they left. So a person can be an extrovert and be bad at it. Sensing and intuitive, for example, you could prefer one but not be good at it. You could be a bad thinker, a bad intuitive person or a bad sensing person. It doesn't say anything about how good you are at it. So it is wrong for companies to place employees into particular positions based on an MBTI personality type, because first of all, that's only an indication of a preference. It doesn't say anything about their ability or how well they would do. It's only like 4 dimensions, and that's not really enough to really explain the complexities of what a person needs to do well in a particular job. There's a lot more than just 4 simple personality categories. So it's too simple or too simplistic. It's not accurate. It was never meant for that purpose. Same holds true for like dating matches. Relationships are complex. You can't really boil it down to 4 simple personality types, or the 16 personality types if you have the different combinations INTP, ESFJ, and so on. It can be very helpful for understanding yourself. It's useful for that, and that's what it's designed for. It can be helpful for maybe understanding relationships, the person you're in a relationship with, and how your personalities are different or similar. But it has its limitations. Next, we are going to talk a little bit more about these 4-letter combinations. The MBTI kind of assigns you a 4-letter combination of how you fall into these different categories, INTP, ESFJ, or something like that. What's your personality type according to the MBTI? And there might be one category where you're in between. I guess pick which one you like, or maybe you do both for this exercise. We're going to do a little exercise. I want you to do a Google search right now. I'm going to pause the video in a minute. Do a Google search in English for websites that maybe describe your personality type. There are a lot of popular websites out there that do this. So websites that describe your personality type in general, and maybe what kind of person you are, what kind of friend you are, and such. But there are also websites that will tell you what kind of a worker you are, or what kind of job might be good for you. Take a look at those websites too. What do these websites say? Oh, this would be a good job, this would be a good career for you, this would be a good major for you. What do they say about your personality type? So I want you to go online, find some information, what the internet says about your personality type. And what do you think about it? Do you agree with it? Do you think these descriptions of you sound accurate, or are these descriptions of possible careers? Do they fit you? So pause the video and do some searching, and then talk to someone about your results. Okay, we're back, and for your results, I'm going to ask you to share your results in a Google form that you're going to fill out after this lesson, after this class, and what you think of it. Now I want you to imagine you are interviewing for a job someday. So think of a job you'd like to interview for, and imagine that in the interview they ask you, describe your personality. What's your personality like, and what are your personal strengths and weaknesses? But especially describe your personality. How would you describe yourself? Could the items on the MBTI or your results maybe help you with part of your answer, at least part of your answer? Could it come from the MBTI results? Yes or no? Would your MBTI results maybe help you, at least in part, describe your personality? Or would you describe it without referring to the MBTI? How do you describe your personality? Because I'm also going to ask you to write about that. So pause the video, think about this question, talk to someone about it, and we'll come back. Okay, I hope you had a little fun thinking about that question. I might ask you to write about that too in a Google form. We've got a couple of Google Forms for you to do. The first one, as I mentioned, is personal information and survey questions, and the second one will be a form where you think about some of the questions we talked about today, and I want your responses, your answers. So I will provide you a link to a Google form to fill out, and that's going to be your homework and for attendance today. We will continue talking about some related issues with personality and such next week. Until then, have a good weekend, and I will see you later. Goodbye.